Welcome to our IPS postgraduate workshop. And I'm Muhammad Azwan Hussein. I'm currently the Associate Professor from School of Chemical Sciences, University of Science Malaysia. And basically, our session today is going to be a little bit informal. As I said, the session will be kind of interactive. I think welcome to any questions from the platform or from the students if you have any doubts. And the topics that I'm going to talk today is basically on how you actually can get yourself prepared, or how you can actually look at some of the criteria on writing a good response to reviewers' comment. And probably some of you might wonder what is actually the purpose of writing the response to reviewer. So of course, when we talk about any sorts of publication, any write-up that we send is not 100% a perfect manuscript. It's going to be a first draft, and there's a lot of, I think, lacking and some weakness that we need to improvise in the final manuscript or whatsoever. So therefore, there there will be some comments from the reviewers, and of course, the tips or the points that I'm going to share with you guys today is throughout my, I can say, like more than 15 years of writing articles, and I think my own experience as a reviewer, and what are the things that we normally look at when we receive a revised manuscript, or when we receive a response to reviewers' comment letter, right? And just a little bit about my background. My background is basically in chemistry. I did my first degree and master's from USM, and proud to be a part of the alumni. I'm sure that the postgraduate students who attended this course today, when you finish your studies in master's or PhD, you'll be a proud alumni as well, to serve back to your country, to serve back to your university and whatsoever. And I think my journey as the lecturers is not really long. I started in 2015 and promoted to associate professor in the year of 2021. And currently, I'm also holding another position as the Deputy Director of Research, Creativity and Management Office, RCMO, from 2021 until now. And I think some of my backgrounds in terms of as a researchers, I've published more than 150 articles, and I have a few books chapter, including some patent granted, and some copyright file. Other than that, I'm also currently an active editorial member in the Frontiers in Chemistry. Probably you've heard about Frontiers publisher. So I'm basically the editorial boards of Frontiers in Chemistry and also Frontiers in Materials. I think other than that will be on my achievement in terms of supervision. I've graduated a few PhD students as a main supervisor, and I think a few research mode in terms of a master's degree. And I think my total citation at the moment is also not really as much as the other well-known researchers, but I'm pretty sure that your goal as the researchers, or as a scientist, is that when you write an article, it is not how much that you produce. It is basically how frequent people refer to your articles. That basically tells you that the articles that you wrote, or the content that I think you wrote in your article, will be useful for other people or other researchers to cite. right? And when we actually do our research, this is always the things that we need to consider. There's a philosophy, I think, raised by other researchers, and one of them is actually Michael Faraday. For those who are actually coming from a science background, probably you know him. Michael Faraday is actually an electrochemist, and he actually didn't receive a formal education during his younger age. He actually worked as a research assistant to Sir Humphrey Duffy, and then after that, he actually acquired some knowledge in terms of electrochemistry, and after that, become a great inventor, a great researcher. So, according to Michael Faraday, there are three necessary steps in a useful research. First, to begin a research. A second, to complete or to accomplish all the objective, and finally to disseminate the knowledge by means of publication. So these are the few philosophies that we as a student, we need to put this as part of our priority. Okay, and people have said that publish or perish or whatsoever, but as I said, it is not in terms of how many papers that you produce, but the main objective is how actually you want to let other people know about your research, so that you are not working in silos and not doing things for yourself. The main motivation for publication is basically on dissemination. You want to actually spread the knowledge to everyone, and this is actually the most highest percentage of motivation. And other than that will be on the career prospect, because some of you probably bonded to your institute, maybe some students from Nigeria, you are bonded to your university or your polytechnics, and probably after that you are going to promoted your rank or whatsoever. So part of the requirement is to look at how many papers that you have produced. So for career prospect is another motivation. For improved funding, this is actually more or less for researchers. If you actually wanted to apply for a research grant or whatsoever, so the main criteria or part of the criteria is to have a good numbers of publication in terms of that particular field, so that you will be more competent to do that particular research. And other than that will be on egos, patent protection, and others. So the task of writing a research article can be daunting, even with groundbreaking research, unless the paper is correctly written. At best, it will be published, but maybe there will be some delay or whatsoever. At worst, it will never be published. So, as I said, when we do a research, it is always important to disseminate knowledge. So that is why the purpose of attending a workshop or seminar, so that you can actually acquire those kinds of knowledge, and that will equip you in order to prepare your manuscript or whatsoever. So today's presentation will show you on the overview how actually you can structure a research article, and then after that, when you have successfully submitted the articles, how actually you can prepare a revise or response to reviewers' comment, so that it will be, I think, accepted in the future. All right. Probably you wonder, there's actually some of the things we as an author, because when we actually become a researcher, we do research, and we want to write an article, so we coincidentally become an author. So for authors, we have our own priority. Okay? Some of you probably, after completed your research, you want the article to be published as soon as possible, okay? So that your supervisor wouldn't actually chase you to meet he or she KPI for a grant or whatsoever. And that is why when you actually wanted to submit your articles, it is best actually to survey what types of journal that you want to submit. whether it's going to be an open access journal, and the speed of reviewing is actually fast or slow or whatsoever. So the top 3 items that normally authors will prioritize is basically on referring speed. It means that when you submit the articles, you will get the response quick. It doesn't mean that you submit the article and it took like 1 year, almost 2 years to get a response from the editor or from the reviewer, right? And referring standards, probably you will see that the comments from the referee or from the reviewers, it could be from the editor himself, but then I think normally you will have a set of reviewers. Then this is actually very good because you will have a more comprehensive reviewing, and then the comments will be actually thorough, so that the articles that you will submit after the revision will be a good, revised article, right? And then after that, the journal repetition. So first few things that you need to consider when you are going to submit the article is to, as I said, to survey the types of journal that you want to look at. So how to do that? I think you know the best. You are working in that particular area, and you are referring to some journals. I mean, some articles, and you can actually look at what types of journal that they publish. And some of the journal is actually a very good journal. They are Q1, Q2, or first quartile, second quartile, or whatsoever. So from there, you can actually survey in that particular year how many issues or how many volumes that this journal actually published. That actually will determine how fast the process is. Because if, let's say, for one journal, they only have like 1 volume or 2 volume per year, then you know that the speed of publication will be very, very slow, because there will be lots of pending articles waiting for to be published in press or whatsoever. So it will be best if you can actually find journals that basically have, I think, more than 10 or around 12 to, or more than 12 issue number or volume number per year. So it means that the speed of reviewing or referring will be faster as well. All right. And other thing will be on the quality of the editorial board, and also the publication service, whether when you want to submit the article, it's going to be a facile process, not only just email to the editor. You have like a system like AV system, you have some running system or format that you can easily upload your articles and whatsoever. So these are part of the things that you need to consider when you're about to submit any papers. Right. The authors and also readers' behavior, we are actually prone to have a different objective. As an author, we actually want to publish more. You as an author, you want to publish a lot of paper for your PhD. I want to publish maybe 3 papers, 5 papers during my PhD or during my master's. Okay, but for readers, we also as a readers, so we cannot run away with this behavior. I mean, we as an author, and at the same time, we as a reader. As a reader, in turn, we want to read less. Okay, we don't want to read a lot of papers. So you can ask yourself, or even when I actually discuss this with my students, I actually observe that they use the similar reference every time they discuss things. Okay, so it means that they didn't want to read a lot of articles to refer or whatsoever. Okay, so that is why the types of articles that you want to publish should be a very comprehensive content, which in the end, it will actually address, I think, a reader's behavior that they want to read less. Meaning that the articles that you are going to send will have a lots of information, so that the readers can easily get it. And by referring to your article alone, they can get most of the information. So that is why you'll see a lot of review article will have a lot of citation. Why? Because the review article is basically very comprehensive, summarized paper, and most of the information is actually included in this review article. So for those actually who wanted to have more citation in the future, try to consider to write a review article so that you can actually address problems or address a reader behavior on reading less articles. So for readers' priority, when they actually wanted to access or wanted to read the articles, they will look first on the quality of the articles. Okay, you'll see that even yours, I mean, we ourselves, when we actually wanted to refer to that particular work or whatsoever, we look for a journal that normally, as I said, a very quality journal, so that the work that we refer is actually being peer reviewed by a scientist or whatsoever before it is actually published. And other than that would be on the ease of access. Some journals actually require subscription. I think for us as a university student, we are quite fortunate because the university actually pays the subscription annually to publisher like Clarivate, to Science Direct and whatsoever. You can imagine some university or other place that they don't have this kind of access, and it would be difficult for the students to get the articles. Okay, but I assume that most of you know about Science Hub. I think I also know about Science Hub long time ago when I did my PhD. So Science Hub is not a new thing, and Science Hub actually really help, especially third world countries researchers in order to access articles and whatsoever, right? And other than that, the rapid delivery. I mean, when you actually read the articles, does the information that you are going to get is actually easy, or quite fast? It means that when you read the article, the discussion or the objective can be easily understood. They don't have actually a different parts, which normally some researchers publish one part of the study and they publish a second part and third part in another paper. So when you actually wanted to refer to this kind of article or this kind of work, it seems that you have to compare or you have to follow their publication so that you will get the complete I think knowledge or essence from it. Okay. Then for the convenient formats, link it to the new information, whether there will be cost or no cost when you want to submit the articles and whatsoever. Right. So we have actually looked at this. Authors is actually more on journal focus. We actually, as authors, we aim for a very specific journal when we want to submit the articles, right? And then for readers, they are more article focused. Okay? So let's say for readers, they didn't care the name of the journal. They actually care about the keywords or the topic that they want to read. Okay. And meanwhile, for authors, normally we are more focused on publishing in that particular journal. Let's say bioresource technology. Bioresource technology is a very good journal. So you write the article and you always aim, okay, I want to publish in this bioresource technology. So for authors, normally we have our own aim to penetrate in some good journals. But for reader, they don't care actually. They actually care about the keywords and the title or the focus of the work itself, right? So priorities for readers in low-income countries. So this is part of the discussion. I've actually discussed this earlier. So you can actually consider when you wanted to submit the article, does the article actually will benefit all people, including people from low-income countries? And some low-income countries, they couldn't have direct access to this part, I mean, articles and whatsoever. Then you will have less reference and less citation and whatsoever. So as I said, it is part of the things that you need to consider when you're about to submit your articles. And some of the deciding factors in submitting your paper what kinds of things that you want to publish, whether it's going to be a complete research or it's just a very preliminary work, maybe a short communication or something like that. But more or less, I guess we as a researcher, we want to publish a complete, a full-length article rather than short communication or just proceeding, abstract or whatsoever. And you should actually choose the correct forum. It means that when you consider the types of journal, the journal is basically focused in that particular area. It is not basically a multidiscipline journal, which in the end will make your article become slightly diluted because you have people from different area and probably they wouldn't be interested on reading your article. So if you work on specific areas like, for example, education, so you should actually focus on journals that specifically discuss, or probably the main scope is based on education. And this will actually attract your audience because your audience will comes from the same area as what you are working currently. And for the research journal, um, when you actually wanted to submit the article, once you identify the journal, you should actually look at the guidelines, because the guideline is important, um, so that you wouldn't have any early rejection. Because I can say, as an editor myself, when people submit articles, part of the things that the editorial team will do is to send to the technical team. So the technical team will check on the content, your content, whether you follow the correct reference, I think standards listed by our guidelines. The component is actually following our guidelines and whatsoever. If you don't have all these components, it will be definitely a fast rejection to your articles. All right, so this is actually the flow when you wanted to publish an article, the process of paper publication. So after we complete our research, we will actually gather our data. You extrapolate the data and whatsoever, and prepare the manuscript. So after you prepare your manuscript, you will identify the specific journal and you will actually submit to the specific journal. So once the manuscript has been received by the editor, the editor will actually assign the reviewers, and once the reviewer has been assigned, your manuscript will be reviewed. This will take some time, as I said, but normally for reviewers, even my own experience as a reviewers, the editor will give you only 2 weeks to read the articles. So I think sometimes I'm surprised why some journals will take like 1 year, or almost more than 1 year to get at least the revision or whatsoever, because the time frame given to the reviewer is basically around 2 months, and some publisher is quite strict. Let's say if I actually been invited to review an article, let's say that I didn't respond or I didn't reply to accept, whether to accept or to decline the invitation within 1 week, they actually will will reconsider, and they will actually terminate your appointment and will actually appoint another reviewer. So this basically part of the strategy for the publisher or for the editor to get a more faster reviewing process and publication. So as I said, you have to identify a very good journal that actually provide this kind of attitude, and then after your article been reviewed, you will get a revised manuscript. And once you get the revised manuscript, you need to actually prepare or to address all comments actually as the review arises. And in some decision, this could be either with a minor revision, major revision, rejected, or resubmission or something like that. So if it is rejected, so you can actually look at the comment again and then try to improvise to submit to another journal and whatsoever. But if you have successfully addressed all comments or whatsoever, you will actually resubmit again to the journal, and then the editor will again assign to the same. Sometimes it could be the same reviewer, sometimes it could be a different reviewer. Then that is why you will see R1, revision 1, revision 2. Sometimes it could be more than revision 3, R3, R4, whatsoever, before your article can be accepted. Right. So some statistic about journals rejection. Most of it is actually having a poor methodology. Okay, I got this information from Scopus. Basically, what does it mean by poor methodology? It means that the process or the method has not been detailedly listed. So this is also not limited to the protocol or the methodology. It also means that the discussion is not really enriched. So this is part of the thing cause a high percentage of rejection. And then second, followed by novelty. So always remember that if you want to submit your article, you have to ensure that the research has not been done by someone else. If it has been done by your group, for example, that will be the continuity of the previous work, something like that. But the most important thing is the novelty, because normally we as a reviewer, when we receive the article, we are going to check whether the topic has been studied by various author or not. So if there is, then we think that the information is not new, and when you have a less novelty, then this could actually trigger early rejection and whatsoever, right? And others will be on the poor scientific content, and the case report is of a low priorities or something like that, right? In any research paper, this will be the component. You will have a title, which normally eye-catching title, or a very catchy title that describe clearly the contents. And then you have also the list of the authors. Sometimes you will notice that there's a lot of authors. It could be like more than 20 authors or whatsoever. And yeah, when this is actually true, if let's say that you are sending to a good journal, let's say Nature or Science, then you'll see that more than 20 people actually over there. But it is actually best if you try to limit the numbers of co-authors. This actually will be decided by the corresponding author, which basically your supervisor. And this is actually to ensure that every authors or every writers have their recognition due to their contribution in the paper. If they don't have any contribution, so I think sometimes you will heard about ghostwriter, or something like co-authors who is not actually contributing to the paper at all, but been listed as a part of the co-authors. All right, and then others will be on the abstract contents, keywords, introduction, methodology, research and discussion, and final announcement, reference, and also some appendix. I assume that I'm not going to go this in detail, but I just want to highlight what will be the most important things when you actually want to write a good articles. Normally, reviewers will look more on your introduction and also your results and discussion. The other components like abstract and methods, we are not saying that we didn't actually look this much, but I think we put more priority for introduction and also result and discussion. As I said, introduction should actually reflect to the current work that you are studying. So the content of your introduction shouldn't be too general. It should be very much specific. Let's say that you are working on COVID-19. You are working on a specific topic on COVID-19. You didn't actually tell about the coronavirus alone, because coronavirus, you will have different types of coronavirus. But you specifically I think, discuss or put a short literature on COVID-19 and what will be the technology, what will be the latest advancement on this particular research. And then only the final paragraph, the last paragraph that we always look at in your introduction is to emphasize the new things about this work, I mean the current work, the novelty of this work, whether there will be some inventive step taken in order to improvise something, improvise the process, improvise the analysis, improvise the results and whatsoever, which actually will give some extra points to your articles, right? And probably for result in discussion, always remember that when you put the results, you should actually compare with the previous work as well. So it doesn't mean that whatever you produce is actually we don't have any threshold, we don't have any benchmark or whatsoever. So in order to do that, you have to compare with someone's work so that you know that how good the performance of your results and whatsoever, right? For the types of the articles, for those who are new to writing articles, we have a different types of articles. The most common one is basically original research article, and as I said, the most common one because you will see that there will be thousands of articles submitted every day, not every year, every day, thousands of research articles being submitted. And most of this original research article is basically a novel research, a new discoveries, a new work, and whatsoever. With not more than with more than 5,000 words. Okay, some journals they actually limit numbers of words, but I think on average it will be around 5,000 and above. Okay, with more than 20 pages, together with a double spacing, right? And other types will be on a review article. I guess I've mentioned about review article previously. This is where all information in terms of that particular area being summarized. Okay, a summary or thorough literature review on a recent topic. Okay, with a minimum number of references around 100 reference. But you can see some of the review article could be like having 300, 200 references, okay, with no limit of pages, because you can actually discuss a lot of things in a review article, but try to not to be diluted and try to specifically focus on that particular area only. Okay, and for those who wanted to write a review article, some reproduce information like figures or whatsoever. You need a permission from the publisher. Let's say you take image, microscope image from one particular articles, and you actually want to include in your review article. You need a permission from the publisher first. So how to do that? I guess it's kind of easy these days. So each and every publisher, they have a platform where you can actually apply to get the permission if you want to reproduce figures, especially figures from articles published before. So for, I think, journals, it will be easy because there will be no charge. But if you actually reproduce figures from a book, normally there will be some charges. They will put charges. Maybe if one figure around 150 USD or something like that. Okay, so moving on. Another types of article would be short communication. So short communication is a is a very short content. You have a short discussion also of a specific topic. Let's say you want to discuss about a effect of pH. Okay, so that the only thing, effect of time or whatsoever. So that will be the things that normally people concentrate on the short communication with a limit of numbers of words. Normally not more than 3,000 words, and you cannot have more than 3 figures or 3 tables or something like that. Okay, right. And if you ask me, let's say that you publish in short communication on the same journal, carbohydrate polymers, for example, short communication. Another one actually published in carbohydrate polymers, but full-length article, the impact factor is still the same. There's no actually different in terms of impact factor or ranking, whether you publish as a review you publish as a short communication or full-length article, right? Another types of article will be chapters in book. I guess chapter in book is part of the things that you can actually consider as well when you write the article. So some book chapters actually will highlight a specific topic or special topics with no page limit. Okay, and probably you will get some invitation from the editors to be part of the contributors for their books, probably writing a chapter or a few chapters in the book, right? And then for proceeding is, I think, quite known by everyone, by students especially when you attended any conference. So there will be, I think, proceedings. So proceedings is actually a short article submitted as a supplementary materials when attending conference. Okay, and at the same time, this also will attract participants to join that particular conference, because some proceedings actually will be published. And when they say that it's going to be published, you can actually see your article appear in Scopus, appear in other platforms of publication. And finally, will be on correspondence and also discussion. All right. So since we talk about full-length article, but have you actually imagined, let's say that the article have been published, but suddenly there's actually a wrong information, I think, provided in the published article. Let's say that the formula that you use, that you actually put in your article, published article, is actually wrong. Probably the symbol should be positive symbol, you make it negative or whatsoever. So what to do with that? You cannot actually, or the publisher cannot easily like remove the article. But what normally they will do is that if there's any readers who notice this, so they will actually write emails to the editor and demand for the response from the author, and the editor will contact you and saying that, oh, the reader actually have noticed there's a wrong or a false information, statement, or facts in your articles. So you need to respond to the queries by the readers, and the response are going to be published as a supplementary content. So you'll see that the articles that have the wrong information still remain there, but there will be some correspondence article as a supplementary to say that the facts is actually not right. You can actually admit that, okay, the formula, we have checked the formula and it is actually wrong. If you really think that whatever you have put is actually correct, then you can actually reply, say, we have actually verified the reference, I mean the formula with this reference and whatsoever, so it's correct, legit, and whatsoever. Okay, so that will be the most common types of article that you will see, okay, in any journals. And the flow I mentioned earlier, this is actually the overview for the peer reviewing process. After the article been submitted, you will receive a code, a receipt number that indicates that the editor or the journal will consider your manuscript to be reviewed. And then after reviewing process, you will actually receive comments from the editor. And when you receive the comments, the editor will actually decide whether to revise, to accept, or to reject. And then if actually your article been I think assigned for revision, then you need to respond to the comments and whatsoever, and the article need to be sent again to the publisher for or to the editor to verify again, or to send again to the reviewers. And finally, if everything is okay, revision is checked, at least is going to be accepted. Right. Probably you heard about peer review as what I've mentioned just now, but what does it mean by peer review? Okay. Peer review is basically a reviewing process by experts. Okay. We as a scientist, we as a researchers, our work need to be reviewed by scientists and researchers as well, so that whatever being published is or can be considered as science or can be considered as uh, the research output. If let's say that you write the article and the person who review your work or your write-up is basically teachers and farmers or whatever, which is actually not from their field, then you can imagine the comments is going to be um, I think ridiculous or whatsoever. Okay, so where peer review will be useful. So peer review is actually useful when you submit uh, articles, when you actually submit your application for grant application, and also for tenure or for promotion application. Right. Most of the journals will make an initial decision on the paper whether to review or to reject. As I said, after you have draft your article, it is always important to make sure that you follow the guidelines so that there will be no initial decision, because initial decision could be either they say the article is not within the scope of that particular journal. That's one thing. The second thing, they will say that the grammar is completely awful. And then thirdly, they will say that the authors didn't follow the guidelines, which have been specifically mentioned in the instruction to the authors. So these three things need to be considered by us as an author when you actually wanted to do initial submission. Right. And most editors actually will appoint two referees. If you remember, part of the component for submitting articles is not only manuscript, figures, tables, supplementary materials, research highlight, abstract, and whatsoever, but you also need to prepare a cover letter. So the cover letter sometimes will have a summary of what you have, or probably some description of your work. At the same time, you will actually suggest your reviewers. And some journals, they will actually request for at least 3 or 5 reviewers. Okay, and the editors actually didn't appoint someone that was not in that particular field. That is why the suggestion from your cover letter is needed. Okay, but some journals actually already have their own pool of reviewers. It means that you don't have to suggest the reviewer. They or the editor themselves will actually assign it according to the area that you are working with currently. Okay, referring speed will vary tremendously between the journals. Okay, as I said, some journals, normally a good journals Q1, Q2 will have a very fast, I think, response. And if you look at some publisher, like for example Springer, they will specifically mention the duration for the first response or first reply within how many days or whatsoever. So this actually can give indication to the authors how fast the process is. Okay, right. So authors should receive a decision of accept with revision, minor or major, or reject. If the paper is rejected, most editor will write you and explain about their decision, but normally their explanation will always look at the comments from your reviewers. If your reviewers actually suggest for major revision, let's say the reviewer 1 suggests for major revision, reviewer 2 reject, reviewer 3 major revision, then the editor will actually take your article as major revision. And if let's say you have like a contradiction between the decision, let's say 3 reviewers, you have like major, reject, and also minor revision, then the editor will send another invitation to additional reviewer to at least to get more comments, so that whenever you have like more revision, then the editor can decide for major revision or whatsoever. Right. So after rejection, authors have the option to submit the paper again to another journal. But you need to address first the comments from the previous submission. so that the articles will be improvised and will be considered for later submission. Right, so publication procedures will take around half a year. So let's say that if you are targeting to publish within this year, you already have the draft now. It means that whenever you want to have a publication within end of this year or whatsoever, the article should be at least submitted within the first quarter of the year. And then only you can have the comments or revision by middle of the year, the second quarter, and third quarter will be accepted and waiting for the issue number and whatsoever, right? So I just want to explain a little bit about reviewer's task before I explain about the tips on preparing a revised manuscript. For reviewers, the main role is actually not to condemn the work. Our role as a reviewer is not to condemn the work. Our role is more on to provide thoughtful narrative content that are specific in nature. Let's say that if the content of the article, probably research has been done in some countries which have not, which they don't have a very good facilities or whatsoever. So you cannot condemn them by saying that, oh, the study is not being completed or something like that. No analysis to support or whatsoever. We should actually suggest them what they, the alternative that they can do in order to enrich the discussion and the content. Okay, so the other role for the review is to help the writer to get a point across the most important possible ways and to show respect to the writer's idea. As a reviewer, you don't have to put your ego here. Right? You say that you know everything, and whatever reported by the writers is actually wrong. If let's say that the facts or the discussion is actually wrong in terms of the concept or whatsoever, you can actually, the reviewer can actually write it in right manners and put some citation saying that we have actually checked your discussion and the conclusion is not really correct because of we have compared with some primary reference or primary source that saying that if you have this kind of trend, then this should be the way, something like that. And reviewers also need to comment on the writing, not the writer. So we actually need to comment on the writing. If let's say that there's a grammatical error or whatsoever, so the reviewer should actually correct as much as they can, but not condemn on the writer, saying that the writer doesn't have a very good English skills or whatsoever. All right? And the reviewer's role is not to agree or disagree with the writer. So most of the reviewer should be a neutral, reviewer, and to convert the writer to any particular viewpoint and to argue with the writers about points in the text. As I said earlier, the most common question being asked by the reviewer when we actually receive the manuscript, part of the things that we always question is about novelty. Okay, what is actually the new technology? What is actually new about the current work being done by the reviewers, by the researchers? And then data, whether the data is actually enough or not enough for publication or whatsoever. And then we also look at the discussion. So the discussion should be informative, as I said. It should be comparable with the previous work that been done by other researchers. And the data interpretation should be correct as well. If the data interpretation is not correct, then this is part of the things that you will see in the comments. Okay. And some other things will be on the citation. So make sure that whenever you write the article, the list of your citation is actually the latest 5 years. It's not actually too old. Maybe 1940s, 1950s. If it is actually a primary source, it is okay to be put. But if it is not, then you can actually add in the most recent articles to actually link with the current work. And some misconception in scientific explanation, experimental design, or analysis, and finally, language. So all these are actually most common things that you will see in the comments from the reviewers. So getting the reviews of your paper, as I said, okay, reviewers is not always right. Okay, they can even be wrong as well. So whatever you want to respond, please respond it politely to the reviewers to justify whatever discussion that you have put in the manuscript. And another thing is don't respond quickly. Okay, let's say that your article received a minor revision, okay, and they give you around 2 weeks to do the revision. So don't actually respond quickly. It means that you receive the decision from editor today, and in the afternoon you already submit the revision. So the editor will think that you are not taking things seriously. Okay, even though it is actually a minor revision, please digest the comment and please prepare at least even if it is basically a very minor um, revision, let it be around a few days before you resubmit again your revision. And prepare the response to reviewers' comment file. So this is part of the mandatory component whenever you want to resend or resubmit your revised manuscript. So the editor will want to see a file which named as a response to reviewers. So you will put all the comments as listed by the reviewers, and you will actually reply or respond to each and every queries that the reviewers ask, and highlight the parts that have been corrected. It means that, let's say the reviewer comment about your introduction and ask you to add few things to discuss in your introduction. So any alteration in the revised manuscript, you need to highlight it. Normally you highlight in yellow. You highlight not only the words, you highlight the whole sentence, so that the editor will think that, okay, this authors actually take my comments or my queries seriously. Then they check the whole paragraph, the whole sentence to make it better. All right. And the checklist for revised manuscript, of course. Yes, is someone asking? Okay, never mind. I think maybe later on we will discuss about any question. So the checklist for manuscript, you should actually have a cover letter. This is actually a mandatory component. Any journals or any art, yes, any journals that you want to submit, the component, mandatory component will be a cover letter, and then followed by response to reviewers' comment, and then the revised manuscript, and then followed by other components, revised figures, revised table, and supplementary materials as an option. Right. So this is actually one of the examples of revised manuscript and response to reviewers' comment file. You actually will receive a comments from reviewers, and you need to prepare a Word file of respond to reviewers' comment. Let's say that from this example, you have a reviewer one that actually asks the abstract should contain some quantitative information. It means that you need to add in numerical values or whatsoever. So always remember that whenever you want to respond to every queries, there's a manner how to do that. I mean, in Malay we call it adab, manner, a correct manner how you are going to do that. First thing is actually you need to appreciate the comments by the reviewer, saying that we really appreciate your comments or whatsoever. Then only you put the response, your reply or whatsoever. We thank to the reviewer for the comments. Some quantitative information have been added in the abstract. Don't simply write a response, which you say done. Four, 4 words. I mean, like, no, you just say done. Right? Everything done. That's all. So I actually remember a few of my experience as a reviewer. When I recheck again the revised manuscript, the comment, the response that the authors prepare, they just say corrected, done, completed, something like that. So this is not a proper way. So I think the reviewer is also a human as well. That they will feel a bit annoyed with those kind of response. So always remember, whenever you want to respond to every queries or content, please appreciate at least the comments by the reviewers, and then later on you put in things. Right. Another thing that I want to show you over here on the right hand side is basically the highlighted or the modified sentence. So you actually highlight it in yellow so that the reviewers know that you already did the correction. And even in the response to reviewer, you can actually tell that you have actually revised the content at page 6, line number 127 until 123. You can also copy paste the sentence that you already made in the manuscript into the response to reviewer's comment. Then the reviewer will think that you are seriously doing things for your revision and whatsoever. Right. So how to respond to comments by peer review? Once you submit your painstakingly written research paper to the journal of your choice, you will most likely be on tenterhooks for weeks, months before you hear from the journal editors. The journal's verdict and the peer reviewers' comment need not be a bitter pill to swallow if you are prepared to deal with them pragmatically. Okay, what does it mean? It means that whenever you submit the articles, always cross your fingers. I mean, the best, as I said, it will be accepted. The worst, it will be rejected. So don't put really high hopes that any initial submission, it will be accepted. Always remember that, because if you actually put high, I think maybe consideration saying that my first article will be accepted, then what happened if the article will is actually rejected? You will feel demotivated, and after that you will start not to do things correctly. You didn't actually correct the articles for the second submission, or you think that, okay, that's it, I don't want to resubmit again or whatsoever. Okay, so always remember that don't put high hopes in your first submission. I think with some luck, probably it's going to be considered for revision or at least accepted. But if it is not, then don't feel demotivated. You always think that there are always going to be ways how to do that. So this part of the things that I want you to inculcate in your in your culture of writing. So tips for responding to reviewers. As authors, you may dread receiving reviewers' comment asking for major revision. It's daunting, okay, to rework something for which you have already taken a greater pains or whatsoever. But don't be tempted to give up. Most important, or most often, the final outcome is actually a worth effort. So that is why, I mean, if I actually wanted to encourage my student, my postgraduate students, or even some of you who attended the workshop today, if you didn't have any experience writing article, try to submit to a very low impact factor first. Maybe just as a trial. You have a preliminary data, okay? You go for Q4 or Q3 journal, okay? And then after that, when you actually are able to publish that, you will have some courage, okay? You will have some feeling that, okay, I can go to the next step. I can go to Q2 or Q1, okay? Some research group, they work in reverse. They submit first to the high impact journal, then only they, if it is not successfully accepted, then they go lower, okay? But it is always best, if you want to get your motivation built up, okay, you go from lowest to top. I also started my first publication in, USM Publisher Journal, Journal Physical Science, when I did my master's. But then later I said, okay, I can actually go to another impactful journal with an impact factor. So started to send to articles in Elsevier Publisher and whatsoever. Okay, all right. So always take a break. Okay, whenever you receive the response from reviewer, okay, take a break, digest again what will be the queries, what will be the comments, give point to point response, and provide a well-reasoned arguments. You should actually put some reference as well whenever you want to argue or you want to discuss about the comments with your reviewers, and pay attention to the details. Okay, because as I said, reviewers also a humankind. Okay, they will feel annoyed if, let's say, that the detail is not being done thoroughly by the authors. Okay, and always watch your tone when you actually write the response. We always have a manner how to write the response or reply to the reviewers. And if, let's say, that you actually we put a slightly high tones in your response, then of course this will give I think some kind of a bad attitude to you, that the reviewers can complain to the editor for rejection and whatsoever. And as I said, always appreciate the reviewers' work. Always say thank you for giving this comment. Thank you for raising this matter and whatsoever. And with that, I think the reviewer will feel more appreciated, and they actually can feel relaxed whenever they want to decide for your resubmission or whatsoever. All right. So as I said, when we actually take a break, it doesn't mean that when you receive the comments from reviewer, you go for holiday, you go outside, you take a break for 1 month, 2 months, and didn't appear again in the lab. No. Okay, it means that always take your time. Okay, initial irritation is only neutral. Take time off and then read the comments again. So whenever I receive a response to reviewer comments, so normally I will actually read over and over again. We read together with my students and we discuss what will be the things that we need to address, what will be the things that we need to include, and what will be the reference that we need to find or whatsoever. Okay, and read the comment again and carefully. Okay, give the objective to ensure that you will have a clearly understood the reviewer's concern. Okay, if let's say that the comment actually tells about something that you didn't do, let's say you are doing some phytochemical studies, you didn't actually include antioxidant essays or whatsoever. It is not part of your objective, but you can actually address to the authors in the right way. Okay, let's say that we understood that this particular analysis is important. We think that for this content, we can actually compare the preliminary results with the previous result, and we can actually perform antioxidant essays in our future work, something like that. So that's I think give the indication that you are going to work on that, but I think in the future or something like that. So the editor will think that, okay, maybe the best you can do is to compare the preliminary results with the previous work or whatsoever. Right, so give point to point or point by point response. The number of reviewers point, okay, and respond them sequentially. Okay, use headings such as reviewer 1. Okay, I think in the editor's decision, at the bottom you will see a lot of comment from the reviewer, review 1, 2, 3, 4, and whatsoever. So you need to address each and every reviewers, not by just simply compile them and then response. Okay, you need to have like one section for reviewers 1 comment, And then after that, after you complete with reviewer 1 response, you move to reviewer 2 response and whatsoever. But all these are actually been combined together in one response to reviewer Word file. Okay, so this make it easy for the editors to follow what you have done. Okay, and it is essential to address each and every point that the peer reviewer or journal editor may have raised. Some, I think, comments is actually overlap between each other. Let's say that the comment by reviewer 1 is actually the same, almost the same with reviewer 2. So you explain in detail for reviewer 1, and when it comes to reviewer 2, at the same comment, you can say that we take note on that. It is actually the same concern has been raised by reviewer 1, and please refer to our explanation in reviewer 1 section or something like that. Okay, right. So provide a well-reasoned arguments. If you do not agree with reviewer's comment, you should tell, but as I said, tell in the right manner. Okay, do not simply state your disagreement. Provide as many details as necessary to help the reviewer understand your line of reasoning. So that is why whenever you want to argue on something, some discussion or whatsoever, please provide at least a few reference so that any statements, any discussion that you put is actually supported, and the reviewers will understand that, okay, this statement is actually being constructed based on some reference or whatsoever. Okay, cited published studies to support your argument. As I said, put a reference, then that will be good. All right, so this is also another examples that's just to show you on how we respond to reviewer. Okay, as I said, some of the comment by the reviewers mostly coming from grammar. Let's say that the reviewer comments that the articles need grammar check entirely or thoroughly. The articles need a thorough grammatical check or whatsoever. So in order to respond to that, you always need to understand that the grammar check cannot be done by Grammarly or Turnitin or whatsoever. You should actually send your article to English expert. Then in your explanation, you can tell that we take note on the comment. Thank you for raising it up. And the article have been submitted or have been reviewed by English experts. Okay. And English expert is not like English teacher or whatsoever. So they are actually a scientific expert, which normally have also a very good grammar and also English knowledge or whatsoever. Then you can put in the comments or in the reply, right? So if you look at this other examples, you will notice that in some comments, as revealed by, okay, I think I take at this comment number 2. As revealed by EIS Spectra, with the increase of caffeine content, the corrosion protection performance improved. Okay, so I wonder whether the corrosion protection performance improve if further increase of the caffeine content. So in your article, probably you didn't actually put some data beyond the specific values. Probably you are doing some optimization, but you need the increasing trends or something like that. But you have the data, which you are not actually show in the articles, because your article will always concern about the increasing trend, something like that. Okay, so you can actually support some data. You can say that we have carried out the analysis, okay, up to 500 ppm, even though the corrosion protection improved, okay, up to 100 ppm incorporated. But you will see that beyond 100 ppm, the corrosion protection will decrease slightly. So it means that when you do optimization, okay, you will find a point where it is actually show the best, and beyond that, it's already plateau or didn't show. So some reviewers, they will actually request for this information. You can actually put it in your reviewers comment just to show that you have done the optimization first before you put the conclusion in the articles, right? Some other things, as I said, probably you need to put some references or some citation in your response so that any discussion will be supported by some work that's been done by previous researchers as well, right? So this is also another thing that when you actually observe some discussion being added into your articles, the sentence that been added is actually been highlighted. You highlight in yellow, you highlight in different color just to show that you have add things in your revised manuscript. So this part of the improvement that need to be seen by the reviewers when they reread again your manuscript. So always pay attention to the details. Details are important when explaining how you address each concern. For example, if a reviewer has said that you need to include or reinterpret data, you can describe the test you performed and the results you got and mention where you have added this information. Okay, so you may be considerate and even paste the exact sentence that you have added or modified in the manuscript when following a review suggestion. So since this can save the editor or the reviewer the trouble of switching between files. So whenever you actually highlight the things, it will be easier for the reviewer to recheck and to confirm, to affirm that you have done the addition or reinterpreting of your discussion. So always watch your tone, okay? Remember, reviewers are critiquing your work, not you. So do not let your ego, do not let your response reflect any bitterness. If you disagree at some point, so try to address that in the right manner. So you can say, I disagree with the statement, something like that, due to the fact that when we refer to the previous work done by this one, we notice that we obtain a similar trend, a similar observation, similar phenomenon as what we explained in the articles. Then support your statement with a rational, scientific explanation with some reference, as I said, from literature to support the things. Okay, and always appreciate the reviewers' work. Peer review invested their own time. As I said, serving as a reviewer, we didn't actually get any money. Not like when we receive thesis. When we receive your thesis to evaluate as a PhD, external examiner, internal examiner, or vice versa, we actually get some honorarium or something like that to fasten the process. But for journal reviewer, we didn't receive anything. The best probably for MDPI, maybe they give you a voucher, and when you actually and this is not a voucher to buy food or buy something. It's actually for our future publication with this publisher. Okay, so always remember that reviewers spend that time. Like myself, I always do the reviewing every weekend. So I spend sometimes to read the articles. Like normally, on average, every month I will receive probably around 10 invitation from different journals to review articles. So of course, I cannot run away. I cannot do it during working days because I have many things to do during working hours, but I have to spend some extra time. So that is why I always appreciate and try to put the tone slightly okay, so that the reviewer will feel appreciated on the time taken to comment on your work. Okay. So in fact, a long list of detailed comments from the reviewer usually means that the reviewer has spent time evaluating your study. If sometimes you feel a bit annoyed, you see a lot of comments by the reviewer, but you should understand that the reviewer actually spent time to read in detail your articles. So be sure to thank the reviewer for their consideration and also effort. This is always important. Right. So this is also another examples Okay, for response to reviewer. Okay, for example, please rephrase the manuscript title and also the novelty of this work should be provided in details in the introduction section. So the step will be, first, you thank to the reviewer. Thank you for your recommendation. Okay. Next step is to explain. The title have been rephrased as blah blah blah, and the novelty of this work have been added in the introduction section as highlighted in yellow. You can put as simple as this, or you can actually copy them and put it also over here. So the sentence, the highlighted sentence is as follows. You just put the complete sentence. Okay, and some comments will be on grammar. They want you to change from something to something, like page 10, line 10 and 16 is corresponds to, should be corresponds to. The sentence have been changed as suggested by reviewer. This actually you agree to the reviewer's probably suggestion. Okay, and I think this is also a kind of a safe statement, a safe response, because you didn't argue much. You just accept things. And normally for grammar check or whatsoever, if the reviewer suggests something, you just agree. I mean, you just follow whatever has been suggested. You didn't actually prolong the arguments or whatsoever. Recheck the spelling and the grammar in the manuscript. Thank you for the comment. The manuscript have been revised thoroughly and undergone grammatical check by the English expert before the submission. So this is also another way how you want to respond to any grammar or spelling mistakes in your manuscript. Okay, as a reference, you can take benefit from the following research paper. So some reviewer, they suggest you to add reference in your articles. But I think sometimes you can notice that all of the reference will have a common name. So probably that common name is the reviewer themselves. Okay, you can actually say that the paper is interesting and contribute a lot of our reviews. You add in, meaning that you add in the reference inside, but not all, because I guess this is also something that is not ethical to cite a lot of articles which have a common name over there, because of course probably the reviewer wanted to increase their citation or whatsoever, so they ask you to put their articles in your paper. You can take the relevant one, but you can actually ignore the remaining. So you can say that we actually agree and we just consider the related articles only for consideration and whatsoever. All right. So this again, as I told you, if let's say that some comments actually commenting on your data which have not been shown in your articles, you can actually put the supporting data or documents in the response, so that it will give an explanation to the reviewer that you have done the preliminary work and you actually have optimized things, and you have different observation and whatsoever. So with this kind of explanation, it will give more I think understanding to the reviewers that the study have been done completely. Okay, right. So in the perspective of an editor, right, the point by point response should be addressed the concern directly, offering a description of the changes made or an explanation as to why the comment was set aside. It should be a reason disagreement and not just by disagreement. Okay, right. And peer review always right. Okay, so peer review, as I said, sometimes they are expert in their field, but some also maybe they have some basic understanding or whatsoever. So peer reviewer are essentially expert in their field. However, this doesn't mean that their comment should be taken as a gospel. Okay, you really embrace the comment or whatsoever. Evaluate each of the comments on their merits. Do not argue with the reviewer just for the sake of agreeing or with the mistake impression that the journal editor expect you to incorporate all of the reviewer suggestion. At the end of the day, it is your study and reputation at stake. You are the one who read or who did the work. So you should actually know the best as compared to the reviewer. So any observation, anything that you experienced during your study, you should know. And if let's say that the trend and everything is actually not as what the reviewer expect, you can actually explain to them. Okay, right. You may also find yourself receiving conflict feedback from reviewers. One reviewer may be satisfied with the methodology, while another may consider it inappropriate. Okay, minor differences of opinion are natural, but such diametrically opposite views can be perplexing. Okay, see which reviewer you agree more and follow his or her advice and justify your decision to the editor. Alternatively, you can request the editor to give you a third opinion. Okay, ultimately, it is the journal editor who will make the decision on how to handle the conflict. Provide a well-reasoned argument is likely to defeat to balance the favor and whatsoever. So if let's say that your article been, I've maybe one experience when I submit one article, the article is actually been rejected. But when I check the comment is actually not reflecting my work. Probably the reviewer have been confused with someone else's work or whatsoever. So I actually wrote to the editor saying that the comment from the reviewer is actually not directing to my articles or something like that. Then I asked the editor to reconsider whatsoever, because it's not fair to get a rejection with a comment which is not actually reflecting to our work or whatsoever. So the editor consider and say that we need to resubmit again, and they will quickly assign to the correct reviewer or whatsoever. Okay, so always think that you still have a chance to do or to say to the editor. Right, so dealing with a request for a major changes, always look at the word counts. Sometimes your paper may be accepted for publication, but the journal editor may request you to trim. Okay, let's say 1/3 of the content. Okay, so you should actually trim something that is more general, not the most important thing that you remove it out, because this is part of the things that you want to remain in your article. But something that is more general, probably your introduction is too long, maybe let's say 3 to 4 pages, okay, which normally for introduction should be like 1.5 pages or something like that. Then you can actually trim down the general facts and just emphasize on the or just highlight on the current topics or whatsoever, right? So you will almost certainly have no choice but to comply with this request. As I said, when they actually request you to trim down things, we have to follow. I mean, because sometimes some journals have their limits of number of words or whatsoever. Right? So request for extra data or text, reviewer may suggest various types of changes, from a tweaking a certain sentence to revising entire paragraph. Okay, so occasionally you'll be asked to supply a large set of data or include more than a page of text. Right. So in this case, if let's say that the reviewer asking you to add data, so something like that, if you can actually add in the discussion, just follow, add in the discussion, put the reference, put the discussion in details. Okay, but always consult with your supervisor and the corresponding author to look at what will be the best things to add in. Okay, and some things that probably you have not done in your analysis, then you can actually try to maybe address it or try to reply it in the correct manner. As I said, probably say that we think it is actually important, but we can consider for our future work or something like that. All right. So common issues with response to reviewers' comment. The most common one will be ethical issues, self-citation. It means that you actually cite your own work, but it doesn't mean that self-citation is not allowed. It is allowed if, let's say, that the work is actually a continuation from the previous work. Let's say that you are doing some works on drugs, specific drugs, okay, anti-diabetic drugs, okay. So your colleagues or your supervisor have produced a previous paper from different types of compound or whatsoever, and then now you are working on anti-diabetic drugs as well, but you use a different types of drug. So you cite some maybe reference from your own colleagues or your own supervisor or whatsoever. So this is actually okay, but the thing is self-citation that is not allowed if, let's say, that your other colleague is working on, let's say, anti-tumor or anything which is not reflecting to anti-diabetic or whatsoever, but you cite them. Okay, if there's no correlation, try to avoid that. Okay, right. So second would be conflict of interest. Okay, so conflict of interest, if let's say that there's some, I think, conflict between the authors, between the reviewer and whatsoever. Okay, different reviewer will are assigned for reviewer one. So you actually receive comments from reviewer one, I mean revision one. But when you have actually addressed all things, the editor actually sent to another reviewer, which it means that your article been checked again from scratch, and you will have another comment on another things which normally didn't reflect to the response of what you have sent earlier. And finally, a grammatical error, as I said, because we are not a native speaker and we always make mistake, but try to reduce this I think error by doing a proofreading or whatsoever. Right. So some of the basic tools required for preparing the revised manuscript or response to reviews, comment, you will need a Turnitin. Okay. You need to check the plagiarism. It should be less than 20%. And then you will need also referencing style system, which in this case will be from Mendeley EndNotes. Okay. You will need some books to write the comments or whatsoever to strategize what you should do. And then you'll need some related articles. Please make sure that, as I said, it will be 3 to 5 years recent. And then other things will be on how you structure the plottings on whatsoever from origin, software, Excel. And if you are coming from chemistry background, you should use TopSpin for the NMR spectrum, okay, SCD Labs, ChemsDraw, ChemSketch, or any sort of modeling or design software and whatsoever. Right. So please proofread before submitting. After you have done the revision, send again to your supervisor, send again to any proofreading service to check whether everything is okay or not. So terms being used consistently throughout. It means that if you have used a term, it has been standardized throughout the manuscript. Do the number of extract match the number in the text and also tables. Make sure that you don't have any mistakes in terms of like assigning the numbers of figures, numbers of tables, and whatsoever. Do citation in the text match with the reference, and the grammar syntax are actually acceptable. Right. So I guess this one I will not going to go in detail because we already know about submission. I've told about submission earlier on. Always actually follow the guidelines, even when you actually prepare the revised to reviews, comment, or revised manuscript. So articles should not be submitted to more than one journal at one time. So always remember that when you want to submit articles, you didn't actually submit your article as if you want to apply job. You submit to various journal. No, cannot do that because you actually agree with one statement or agreement saying that the article has not been submitted or not been considered at the other journals or whatsoever. If you are being caught, then it would be trouble to you as well. It means that you actually send one article for two journals or whatsoever. Then you can imagine if both are actually accepted, okay? And if they know, you can actually get sued and they can actually give penalty to you. I think the most serious action that the publisher will take is they will ban your name to publish, and also they will give some money penalty to the authors also. Right, most of the submission is currently done by online. So you will have for SCV you have EBIS or EES system. For Springer, Teller, French, and Emerald, people use Scholar One system, and article is submitted online, and all of the reviewing process also happens online. So this actually will speed up the reviewing process on the also the editorial process. But I think this will be some disadvantage for some countries which have a very limited access on internet or very slow internet capability. Right. So after you have submit the articles, you can actually check the status and whatsoever. As you can see over here, when you actually submit the articles, you can see what is actually the status. So the status is actually with editor or under review or whatsoever. So always have time to time check at your account. All right, so comments from a peer review more often than not offer an excellent opportunity to improve the quality of your manuscript, as they address them adequately may increase the chances of acceptance. If you actually follow whatever been told by the reviewer, this will give you at least some chance that your article can be considered for acceptance and whatsoever. And what happens if your article has been rejected? Okay, if your article been rejected because of a technical check, you didn't follow the guidelines or whatsoever, so please consider to look at the guidelines, change the types of the format and whatsoever, and resend it again to another journal. Okay, if the reviewer didn't suggest changes, okay, send it quickly to another journal, but first please revise your article based on the reviewer's comment. So this actually to improve the content of your manuscript and whatsoever. I think I've shared just now about something which is actually related on appealing the rejection. In my case, as I said, my articles when submitted, we received the rejection, and the comments from the reviewer is actually not reflecting to our work. So I think maybe there's some technical problems when they assign the reviewer or whatsoever. So the most important thing is you can actually appeal to the editors. You can write to the editor saying that you need maybe some consideration or whatsoever. But if let's say that the decision being made based on the data or the discussion is completely wrong or whatsoever, so we have to actually improvise that first. Okay, but appealing rejection is actually a case-by-case situation, and what I actually sharing with you just now, it means that you still have a chance that your article can be considered to be reviewed again, even if it is already rejected. Right, so I've come to the end of my presentation. So what will be the future when we talk about publication or preparing a revised manuscript or whatsoever? So of course, the first publication or first article will be your stepping stone for to move or to further your career or whatsoever. So always remember that the journey of 1,000 miles will begin with a single step. So I didn't actually imagine that I'm going to be a researcher. I mean, like now, because like during my master, I just like submitting articles as the first time. I'm still anxious about doing so, but after that, after you have like produced one article to another, it will make you feel proud of yourself. Like I've actually disseminated knowledge to other people and give benefits to others, so that people can continue the work or whatsoever. So life is a journey. It's not where you end up, but it's how you get there. So you cannot actually achieve as a good researcher if you didn't actually start your journey. If you just put it as part of your dream without taking any action, so you are not going anywhere. To know each other, we must reach beyond the sphere of our sense perception. This is actually by Nikola Tesla, right? And last but not least, before I open for Q&A session, I would like to talk about stress. And probably as a student, you have a lot of stress, probably related with GOT, graduate on time. Your supervisor keep pushing you to publish articles and whatsoever. So you feel stressed out. And I think if you feel stressed out, don't avoid stress. You have to understand that most of the common serious disease or the health problem is actually related a lot with mental health or whatsoever. So it is always important to know your stress level. If let's say that you are too stressed, so please take a break, take a time out to re-strategize again, and then after that, try to start fresh and whatsoever. So if you actually let stress remain in your body, okay, in the short term, you will feel, I think, anxious, nervous, you feel anxiety, okay, and many things. I guess maybe some have experienced anxiety or whatsoever. You feel scared to face people and whatsoever. But for long term, because if you let stress remain in your body, you will have a lot of, I think, bad hormones in your body and can actually trigger serious health problem like cancer or whatsoever. According to the Center of Disease Control, the National Institute of Occupational Safe and Health, the workplace is the number one cause of life stress. And I think in statistic, from 3 people, 1 actually will have mental health issues. So always check on yourself, check on your friends, and if you have this thing, what you should do is try to manage your stress. Okay, like myself, I think I enjoy time with students, and this can be done by you yourself. I mean, like for postgraduate student, you can actually try to get yourself engaged with some sports or whatsoever that makes you release the stress, because you have lots of hormone in your body. You need to release it back. So try to play sports, play badminton, jogging, running, or whatsoever. Like myself, I also like fishing. Okay, because for men, we always want to have a moment where we don't think much. When you fish, you just think how to get the fish. You didn't think about how to publish paper or whatsoever. Okay, and with that, you are more focused, and this actually will make your performance even better. Right. So I think finally I would like to acknowledge I think IPS, especially Dr. Teg Wan Seng, and this is actually the old Dean, I guess now is Prof. Azlan, and the School of Chemical Sciences, SMO, not Zamrina, I think now Azulia, and other collaborators and also students and friends. So I'm happy to answer any of your question. You can actually ask directly in the chat box, and I think you can also unmute yourself if you have any question to ask me directly. So I'm happy to answer. So once again, thank you very much. And probably I can try to look at the comments from the chat box. Okay. So one comment from Mr. Raid Kamil Nasir. Okay. Do you have any examples of the comments as a reviewer and the author's answer? So that will help us. Okay. So I think I've shown in my previous slide some of the things that some examples in the comments. Response to reviewer comments. Like for example, this one is part of things, but how to construct that, you should actually have something like this one. Okay. If I may make it a full presentation. So you have a response to review comment, you put a reference, okay, the reference number of your articles and the title of your articles, name of the journals, and then after that you put reviewer one's comment. Okay, this is actually the comment number 1, 2, 3, whatsoever from reviewer 1. So you have a response also. Okay, and then you put some reference and some data, supporting data to support your reply and whatsoever. Okay. Right. So I'm checking the other question probably. Okay. Amira. Okay, Amira. My manuscript have been rejected by Q1 journal, and the reason was not novel. So can I just quickly resubmit the same manuscript to any Q3, Q4 journals? Yes, the answer is yes. You can actually resubmit your articles to another journals, probably the same quartile, or but not the same journals. Okay, this will actually, if you want to send to the same journal again, you need to change the manuscript entirely, almost like you reconstructing the articles. You need to change the title again. You need to reconstruct the content and whatsoever. If let's say that you want to consider to submit the same journals again. Okay, but the answer is yes. All right. So Richard, can we get the slides and record the videos? So I think this one you have to ask IPS. I'm not sure. I think there's a recording, but not sure whether IPS can allow that. But you can always ask Miss Azulia. Okay, so from Hin Jihad, that I have submitted my work at Q1 Journal. One reviewer accepted my work, and the second reviewer did not reject, but keep refusing my result despite me providing literature that supported it. After second revision, it was rejected by the editor. For future situation, how can I handle it? Okay, so this is actually a very good question. Sometimes it is hard to fulfill the need from reviewers, but what we can do, we can try our best to provide, I think, information or to explain as much as we can to the reviewers. So I guess maybe what are the most important thing is try to look on what is actually the main issue. If let's say that the issue is the reviewer wanted you to put some analysis or some data which they think is quite important, okay, you can actually try to, if you can do the analysis or whatsoever, you can consider it, because now the article have been rejected, right? So you can actually add things before you resubmit again or whatsoever. But if the facilities is not available within the university or whatsoever, what you can do is you can actually compare. Let's say that you have another analysis that is almost similar or almost maybe giving a such explanation to whatever the reviewer wanted. So you can actually relate, even though you didn't do this kind of analysis. Let's say that they want you to do some um, chromatography analysis, but you don't have HPLC or whatsoever in your facility, but you have done some other studies like using TLC or whatsoever, you're able to separate the compounds or whatsoever. So you can actually explain this kind of thing. I'm sure that it is not really your area when I explain this, but try to think something that is can be linked or can be relate to whatever techniques that the reviewer asks. Okay. Right. From Shakira. Okay. Can we get the slides? Again, I have to ask the secretariat. Right. I think also ask about. This is actually from Key. Is there any difference in acceptance rate between open access and subscription? Yes. Yeah. So a very good question. When we talk about submitting articles in how to say open access journal, some of the open access journal have a very fast acceptance rate rather than subscription, and for some subscription journals it will be, not to say it's a bit tough, but it will have a very less chances for acceptance or whatsoever. So you have to bear in mind that both, I think, open access and subscription have a pro and cons. For open access, the process of reviewing will be very fast because you pay the service. That is why in the end you have to pay the article publication charge, which normally will be enormous, will be very much expensive. But the process has been done fast, and at the same time, I think some journals, they will do business, and that is why they put charges or whatsoever. But they will have like a very high acceptance rate rather than subscription. So always check on the quality of the journal first when you want to send. So if let's say that you want to publish work for the sake of you want to get it published as soon as possible, then this is not really a good practice, because in the end we want to publish our work in a quality journal so that people will refer to our. You can imagine some open access journal will limit the access to other people to download the works or whatsoever. So always survey or look at types of journal that you want to submit, right? And again, question number 2, how can I recommend suggested reviewer if I don't know any? Okay, this is also another good question. You can actually suggest reviewers by looking at who's actually the corresponding author from the paper that you always refer to. For example, in that particular area, you have like one articles actively produced by one person. Let's say Abu et al. Okay, you see a lot of his work, and you are following their work. So you can actually suggest them, because in every articles corresponding author, there will be information about their email address and other contact info. So with this information, you can actually suggest inside to be included inside your cover letter. But always talk to your supervisor, because sometimes your supervisor also have some suggestion who's going to be the suggested reviewer. So I think this is a part of thing that you can actually consider. Right. So from Apuru Jonathan, is it allowed for USM student to collaborate with other outside of USM in research and publishing article that should be used in graduation requirement? Okay. Right. So anything that you want to do is always related with articles criteria and whatsoever. So always talk this to your supervisor, because if let's say that you work with someone else outside the university and they actually didn't give any contribution, probably like you just add their names for the sake of your friends or whatsoever. So it's not something good to do. But if let's say that you actually incorporate them, researchers from Thailand, Taiwan, Hong Kong, or whatsoever, because of you send your sample over there, you submit the articles, they actually contribute some write-up part on your articles and whatsoever, then this is actually okay. But try to discuss with your supervisor, because any work that been done in USM, it should be reflect to your supervisor, which means your corresponding author. So if let's say that some other unethical action, the supervisor will be responsible. So try to discuss, and if let's say that if there's any contribution in terms of like running the analysis, contribute to the write-up or whatsoever. So to me, I think it's okay, it's fine. But if not, then you don't have to. All right. Okay, so from Apru again, for publication requirement for graduation in USM, can a student here collaborate with another researcher? I think I've addressed this.
Yes, well. Yes, you just answered. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Apru.
Yes, thank you very much for the clarification. I was actually referring to a situation where the other person contributes, not just including their names.
Yeah, you're correct. So I think it's, to me, it's okay if you want to collaborate with someone outside USM, but if there's any contribution or any collaboration or whatsoever by means of they actually help you on analyzing the samples, or maybe put the write-out or whatever, then it is actually okay. And it's actually good as well if you are collaborating with someone who actually well-known researchers in that particular area. Let's say that they are Nobel laureates or famous scientists outside from US, from Japan or whatsoever, then this also will give you a very good chance for your article to be accepted as well, because you have renowned researchers as your co-authors, right?
Thank
Uh,
you very much.
yeah, you're welcome. So I guess if I undertake a research that is related to another student, can we also co-host articles? What does it mean, Apuru? Can you
Sorry,
elaborate?
I'm referring to almost the same thing as the first one. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just like collaborating with another student. Maybe he is undertaking a topic, I mean, a research, and I'm undertaking a research, and we have some similarities somewhere. And then sometimes we can discuss some things together and contribute to each other's work.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. So
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I think it's almost the same thing you have answered. So
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, but I guess maybe if other students that give you samples to run in USM, you can actually talk to your supervisor and probably to after you've done this together, you can actually look at the possibility that you can publish it together. So this, I think, is still doable, but what matters most is to discuss. I mean,
With my
and get
supervisor.
a
It's okay.
clarification. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jack.
You're welcome. And then from one Roslina, I have a few questions. Number one, is there any chance for a manuscript that has been rejected by Q1 and been suggested for manuscript transfer? Okay, right. So to answer the first question, sometimes you will notice that if let's say that your article being rejected, the publisher will or the editor will suggest for manuscript transfer. And if you look, some journals that they suggested is actually an open access journal, and you have to pay or whatsoever. So at the one point, the publisher or the editor, they're also doing some business as well. To me, if you want to consider for a transfer, probably we are looking at the same quality of journal as what, or at least at par with the previous journal that you have sent, even though it was being rejected. So that's one thing. But always look at the financial consequence as well. If let's say that the journal being suggested for transfer is actually open access, it doesn't have any impact factor at all, and you have to pay €1,000, £1,000, 1,000 USD to publish, then I guess it's not worth. So probably you can reconsider on that. So it's not always mandatory to accept the transfer. You can actually ignore if you're not interested. So number two, does a book chapter is considered as a KPI for PhD or master student? Okay. And does a chapter in book undergo peer review process as well? Okay, so this is also a good question. For KPI, PhD and master student, even for grant completion and whatsoever, what matters most is the publication should be in the ISI cited or Scopus cited or whatsoever. And most of the book chapters, some, I think probably majority of it doesn't have any Scopus cited or ISI cited. So you have to know that when you write in the chapter in books, it can be considered as part of the publication, but it cannot be counted as the KPI to accomplish, like to close a grant or whatsoever. It can be, I mean, like accepted if the book is actually have ISI or whatsoever. But if it doesn't have, then it is not going to be considered. But I think it's also good to have like not only articles alone, you also have like book chapter. So it means that sometimes some department or some schools, they actually look more on publishing in books. Like for example, if you're working in history, in language or whatsoever, article will be almost impossible to publish. But I think books or book chapter can be considered. So the requirement and everything will always refer to the PTJ or to the department. So you can always check on that. But for KPI for PhD and master student, as I think mentioned, they said journals. So book chapters can be counted as well, but part of the supplementary or additional publication, right? Okay, so it's a question by Rong Wei Han. Does the supervisor have to be the corresponding author, or there is no specific requirement for corresponding authorship in USM graduation requirement, and it all depends on the division of work in the article. Okay, so the culture in I think most universities is that the corresponding authors should be your supervisors, but I think you can actually negotiate with your supervisors. Sometimes you can be like co-correspondents or whatsoever, but most of the times the supervisor will be the corresponding author, but the students have to be the first author, okay? Because I think if you want to extend your JRA assist, you want to extend your fellowship or whatsoever, part of the requirement is that they want to see your publication, you yourself as a first author, even though you are not as a corresponding author. But what is actually matter most is you yourself as the first author. So this one also need a diplomatic discussion with your supervisor. But for the corresponding authors, normally supervisor should be the corresponding author. The students will be the first authors, or at least the first student authors. Okay, so I guess another question is from Ahmad Bawazir. In recent years, there is a race for citation in an aggregation way, even well-known facts among scholars in the field of studies. What is the logic behind this behavior? Okay, very good one. Okay, so I guess some of the current trends you might see, especially people like at least are doing they seems like racing with each other. I mean, like we have uncertain objective basically, but I think the most common aim is actually to have more citation as compared to others, or produce more papers as compared to others. But as I mentioned earlier, even during my first presentation, it is not a matter of how much paper that you produce, but what is actually matter most is how many people actually refer to your article. You can have one paper with a lot of other researchers who are referring to your work. It means that the quality of your work or the area that you're working is actually impactful. Then this actually will attract people to continue working on that particular area. Okay, but having a lot of like a citation because of for the sake of wanted to have high H index or whatsoever, it is actually not a good move or something like that. It is good for your career, but I think in the sense of you yourself as maybe as a researcher who work on that particular niche, you should actually build strength on your your area, and maybe try to look at how you can actually contribute to other people's, or to cater the problems faced by the country or whatsoever. So this is actually the few things that you need to put priority rather than keep racing for like ranking, like a citation or whatsoever, high citation or whatsoever. Okay. All right, so I guess that's most of the comments from the chat box, and I don't know whether if there's any other things that you would like to ask personally from maybe you can unmute yourself if you want. Okay, so if you have further things that you might want to know, or you want to discuss, you want to get my opinion or whatsoever, you can always contact me. Okay, at this email address I put in the chat box. So I'm willing to give some suggestion or probably some assistance in order to help you or to guide you on preparing a revised manuscript, preparing a good response to reviewer or whatsoever. So I guess that marks the end of our workshop. Thank you very much for staying with me for already 2 hours now. And I wish you all the best for your research, and hopefully you will finish your studies in the flying colors and able to publish works or whatsoever as you want. So with that, thank you very much and have a good day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Prof.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
No attendance for this?
Attendance, I'm not sure. I don't know whether Azulia is still here.
I actually sent her to ask, but not received anything. So usually we take attendance so we can get the recorded.
Yeah, you can email to her if you want to get the attendance, because I'm not actually handling.
I think you
very
can
sorry.
find it in the email. Next email.
Okay.
Sorry? Okay, thank you.